top. Good morning. Welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. So we are waiting very impatiently for some goats to give birth. Seems to be kind of part of the thing, part of owning probably any animal. Very anxiously awaiting the baby's arrival. But I am getting breakfast ready for my kids, and then we'll go out and check the goats. I wanted to show you this yogurt that I made. Yogurt has been a little bit of a challenge for me. We do make kefir, and actually just restarted my kefir grains, and that's essentially like a drinkable yogurt. It's a nice, thick, very well cultured ferment, but when we eat yogurt, we really like it to be super thick like this. When we buy it, we like to buy the Greek yogurt, and I managed this with raw milk. Probably sometime in the future I'll have a dedicated video on that, but if you'd like to know for now, I got the recipe out of this book that was sent to me, and it's 1 quart milk, 1 teaspoon of the powdered culture, and a drop of liquid rennet diluted in a 1/4 cup non-chlorinated water. And I think the rennet is the key to it being thick like that. And that's what we like out of our yogurt. Plus, I don't have to like pasteurize my raw goat's milk before I add the culture. It just takes more time, and I don't usually have that kind of time. This yogurt is not sweetened, and we are actually going to sweeten it today with some jam. Who wants peach?
I want peach.
Okay, and who wants cherry?
I want cherry.
Okay. Hello, ma'am. Look at that udder though. Can we see it? It is more full than yesterday, which I didn't think was really possible. Nice and full, but I do still feel ligaments in here. So if you're not already aware, goats do have 2 ligaments attached to the base of their tail on either side, and those ligaments are very firm when they're not close to labor, and as they get closer to labor they soften up a lot. Sometimes they soften up so much that they appear to just vanish, and I find that that's not always the case for me in my herd. A lot of times my goats will be in active labor with detectable ligaments, but it's still a good guide. It's still a good reference point for me, so I don't know. Maybe not during the day today, but possibly tonight. You can see there's a little bit of hay on her teeth there. Christine's udder does leak a tiny bit, especially when she's super full, and so, I mean, it's probably a good sign that she's close to giving birth. Her due date was 3 days ago. Oh my. Elvis here is Christine's daughter, and she's actually due tomorrow. Her udder is quite large, but truth be told, I know she has room to grow in there, which is insane. You're an overachiever, aren't you? Yeah. So as time gets on, I get more and more suspicious that they probably will deliver on the same day, which I don't think. We've had goats born on the same day before, but it was so many hours apart that it didn't feel like the same day, even though it was the same calendar day. I think I even got to sleep in between those births, but I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. You're not due until the middle of March. No, it'll be your day soon. I've got a little baby udder coming on. So up here I have this camera. The camera is attached to the internet, and I have been able to watch the goats from inside the house. And actually right now we have some members of the Goat Labor Watchers Hurry Up and Wait Club. I do have it streaming live for our members right now. Eventually I am going to live stream the barn for the public. I'm just trying to figure it all out. And they're having a fun time watching you, lady. It's turned a little bit breezy today. I know we are expecting some really rainy weather coming up. Like the entire weekend is supposed to be super wet. So maybe that's what the girls are waiting for. Bad weather. That would be the case, of course. I really like these new hay feeders. They're super sturdy. And I can move them around. So like I mentioned, we're getting some rain later. I can pick that whole thing up and bring it inside their house. You guys have one too. Do you like it? Can you reach it, short stuff? He can. Did you get sprayed? I know the way that these are intended to be watered is through this bucket up here. You fill it up and then all of the water cascades down through the container. I actually transplanted a lot of strawberry runners into this space. You can see that little disc in there. That is where the water drips out of, and I want to make sure that the strawberry runners that I have in these cups that are way out here get a lot of access to water because they're trying to put down roots right now. So a more targeted watering for this bed or this green stock is really what I'm after until they get established. Actually, a lot of the strawberries that are down here are established. They actually put out runners that took hold in this weed fabric. You can see a strawberry back there. And then there's one in the weed fabric right here. I'm just gonna leave it for now. That's where all these runners came from, was me cleaning up this section right here, which I think is pretty cool. If you've watched my garden tours in the past, this area does tend to get a little bit wild and crazy. The green stock really does get overrun and I kind of forget about it in the summer. I'm hoping to change that this year. The strawberries gave me some grace and filled this thing up without me having to buy a thing. I will have to come in here with a little bit of fertilizer. I bought some blood meal and some bone meal, and I'm sure they'll appreciate that. I'm not going to be filming an official garden tour this week while we wait on the goats, but this can act like that. This can act in its place. I did make a really awesome discovery in the broccoli area. We've got some heads. Just about every single broccoli plant, even this little one here, they're making a head. Look at that one. Lovely. I've been a little bit concerned about really all the brassicas in here over the last couple of days because it's been in the mid 60s in the first part of February, which truthfully is quite unusual for this time of year in our area, which is southwestern Kentucky. We will heat up above freezing most days during the winter, but to have an extended springtime feel like this is quite strange. Thankfully, we do have that weather system coming in that I talked about earlier, and that is bringing in a more common winter weather for us. So hopefully these broccoli will not go to seed. So far, so good. I think they're gonna be all right. I think it helps too that I planted like a slow bolting variety, a heat tolerant variety. My cauliflower had started to head up, but I think me messing with this particular head a couple weeks ago made it, I don't know, it shriveled up. There's no head in this particular cauliflower. This particular variety of cauliflower is self-blanching, and what that means is the leaves of the cauliflower naturally wrap around the forming head, protecting it from the sun. So me kind of meddling in there and peeling it back is not what that head needed, and it died. So, lesson learned. I'm not gonna mess with what's left. Their leaves don't look great. This is probably just from water oversaturation. Definitely one of the downsides to growing in the ground this time of year in this area. The ground just becomes a solid mud pit, and while it's great that it retains moisture in the summer, it's not so great in the winter. It does not drain as well, and so that's what that discoloration is. Our Brussels sprouts are still here. They're still kind of short. I think maybe I will harvest these later, or at least soon. I had been waiting to see if they would get some more upward growth, but it doesn't really look like they're gonna do that. Down here, I have a really exciting project. These are brown beech mushrooms. And you can see they are pinning. There's little baby mushrooms coming up. Can you see those guys? Really cool. Hello, good sir. Inside the house, we have this really epic looking yellow oyster mushroom on its first flush. I do have these pink oysters. They looked like they were about to fruit again, but for some reason they're shriveling up. I need to text my mushroom guy about this. Whenever I have a goat in labor or seeming to be in early labor, I have kind of a bad habit. I don't know if it's necessarily a bad habit, but it's a non-productive habit of just helicoptering around that goat, kind of waiting for them to do something. And it has been a pretty big waste of time in the past. Goats are going to give birth when they're going to give birth. Yes, there is a time to get concerned, but really we're not at that point right now. So I've been trying to fill my time with tasks that just need to get done so that I'm productive during this time. So I have all of this garlic. I've been picking through it and using garlic in my cooking. Admittedly, I usually will just grab granulated garlic from the store when I'm cooking. I'm trying to get better about that. I'm not the greatest, but right now actually is when I tend to plant my garlic, in February. A lot of people like to plant it before winter and let it overwinter, and you can, but I have great success planting it in February. So we're gonna bring this out to the raised bed garden. I have quite a few of these. This little thing looks like an onion. It's in the same family. This is actually an elephant garlic, but it's a monobulb. This here is a full bulb of elephant garlic, and this is just a regular hardneck garlic variety I don't know the name of. But elephant garlic tends to have fewer cloves than your average garlic. I think this one has 4 to 6 is about what you can expect out of elephant garlic. But sometimes they create this monobulb, which is like one giant clove. And from what I've been told, you can plant these monobulbs and they will eventually turn into bigger bulbs like this with multiple cloves. You can see here at the bottom of this bulb, we have these dry roots here, and I am just gonna rip those off. It's probably not necessary, but I want to show you the little tiny, can you see the little white roots coming out of there? It's looking for some water, ready to be planted. So let's go do that. So I've got this bed in my garden that does need some amending. Quite a lot of this raised bed garden needs quite a lot of amending. But as you can see, I'm running out of space to put like manures and things. So what I like to do is put down either a granulated fertilizer or even better, like a granulated bone meal or blood meal. And I'm gonna put bone meal in this bed today. Bone meal is good for root development. And with the elephant garlic, that's what we're after. With this elephant garlic, I'd like to give it enough space to grow well. So I think I'm gonna plant it about every 6 inches. And I'm really just gonna put the bulb below the ground. Even this little tip could be above the ground. And with the full cloves like this, or the full bulbs of garlic, I'm just gonna break them apart. And with these, we're gonna do tip side up, root side down, just the same. And as I'm planting, that bone meal that I scattered across the top is shifting down into the soil and into the planting hole, which is the goal. It was a couple years ago that I bought my first 2 elephant garlic bulbs that I saw at one of our Mennonite stores, and I knew that it was going to be a few years before I had lots and lots of elephant garlic, just because they don't produce very many cloves. But we're definitely at that point where I have as much as I want, which is excellent, and that feels good. It was a couple years of only planting what I harvested and not using much of it, and so that might be part of my bad habit of still not using much of it to this day, but I think we can start using it now. Over here on this side of the bed, I actually have some elephant garlic bulbs from last season that I let flower because I wanted to see the flowers, and so the entire bulb was left down in the ground. So I've got quite a few shoots from the garlic cloves that are still close together, like the entire bulb is still down under there. And so those are gonna be fun to harvest later. I'd like to see what those turn into and what they do. You can see this one's already starting to put up the little green bit on the top. This whole space, really eventually I'd like to turn into more of a perennial space. Garlic is not, I guess it kind of is perennial if you look at these plants down here. It kind of does act like a perennial, but really it's also super hands-off, and that's another good thing about this space. I literally will just leave this alone, just water it, and then we'll harvest it probably around maybe June, July, somewhere around there. With goats and birth, 99% of the time it goes well. We don't need to be here for anything. I like to try to attend them, which is why I'm such a helicopter parent with my goats, but they're fine. Waiting is the hardest part. At this point, I'm really glad that I've decided, okay, stop it. We're trying to have a show here. Several girls are in heat. I've only got 7 of them bred. Ooh, maybe that's a contraction. Maybe not. This year I've decided to turn the hard part of waiting into productivity, and so far it's working out really well. We've got the garlic planted, now we don't have to think about it, and we'll have a harvest in really just a handful of months. And hopefully very soon I'll be able to show you some really adorable mini La Manchas. Stay tuned.